Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of what has to be the worst gaming podcast on the internet, 2-Bit Gaming Podcast, with myself, none other than Matt Lane himself.
Hey, we claim that prize with gusto.
Oh, dignity and honor all the way.
We earned that right, dang it.
I still love the slogan that one of our friends came up with, just angrily wrong.
I'm okay with that.
Granted, that was originally came up for a certain news affiliation. I'm not going to name it because politics or whatever. But I was like, he was like, actually, you could say the same for your podcast. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds about right.
Angrily wrong.
Just angrily wrong. Because we've been wrong about many things. And
of course.
We're very passionate here.
Of course, that's the wonderful, dangerous things of doing a podcast. You have to just sit here and pretend you know what the heck you're talking about.
The worst thing ever is because we used to record these like weeks ahead of time.
Oh yeah,
which was really, really bad because like a lot can change in gaming in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. Now we actually have gotten into a pretty good schedule where we record 2 days ahead of time. Every week, right. Keep it fresh, keep it good, whatever. And it just sucks when like you finish a recording, the next day news comes out that just contradicts everything we just talked about. We're like, good, that's what we wanted.
Great.
Yep.
And we're too lazy to go back and fix it.
Well, we don't have time.
That too.
We gotta like our schedules don't always line up. You have to edit this or send it off to our editor Brian so he can edit it.
Right.
He sucks.
He does.
He tries.
Not really.
Couldn't get anyone else to do it that would accept grilled cheese as payment, so.
And that guy died. After one episode. Short-lived. Shout out to anyone who understands that reference because you actually listen to our podcast.
It's only like 3 weeks old.
Well, that means they listen to at least one of them. Got to count your victories, man.
I suppose so. All right. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes this week, I figured it would be noteworthy since this is a gaming podcast and this was major gaming news. Last week, the president and COO of Nintendo of America, none other than Reggie Fils-Aimé, announced his retirement. Kind of unexpected to me.
Unexpected to everybody.
Yeah, there's always the people out on the internet that were like, I predicted this back in the whatever, but I don't know, man. It's I'm shocked. I'm a little upset. I mean, like I love Reggie. I always look forward to seeing him doing his silly antics or whatever. I'm gonna miss him.
I'm very, very, very curious to see where it's gonna go from here because he just had such an impact on how a lot of things proceeded with that company.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to his credit, I mean, this wasn't the first job that he was in a high position. And, before he worked for Nintendo, he worked for like, I think Pizza Hut corporate and like a couple other like bigger companies in America. And then he moved on to Nintendo and he stuck with Nintendo through thick and thin. I mean, like through the Wii U era and all that stuff, he rode it out. And then now Nintendo's finally like on top of their game again. And he's deciding to move on, and he's handing the reins over to none other than Doug Bowser, who he's a big PR guy at Nintendo now, but he'll soon be the president of Nintendo of America, and I'm interested to see what he'll be doing.
And he has an appropriate last name.
He does. He
works himself out.
Yeah, Bowser's a good guy. We've seen him on stage before. I think he was at the Nintendo World Championships and a couple other tournaments and stuff like that. He's a good guy. He's funny. Apparently, he has the credentials to be the president of Nintendo of America. So I have confidence in Bowser, and we'll have to see, like you said, where things go from here. But I just figured that was certainly noteworthy.
Oh, for sure. Like it's huge topic in the news. If you are a gamer, it's kind of hard to miss it right now. But just for anyone who hasn't heard it by this point, which, we're at the point of recording this, it's already been out for a good minute. But by the time the podcast come out, it's definitely been out for
yeah, it's like a week old at that point.
Right.
But again, I want to applaud Reggie for, first of all, for doing all he did for, the company, sure, but also us, the fans. He was really good at interacting with people, and he's leaving on a high note. He's not being forced out. He's not going to another company. He's just retiring to spend more time, and it's pretty good that he stuck through the bad years. And now that the Nintendo Switch is doing so well, I feel like he's just kind of bowing out while he's on top, because the Switch is just what a system, dude. I mean, you picked one up the other day, didn't you?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah.
I now have a Nintendo Switch finally, after Jay has just held a gun to my face and told me that, hey, you go buy this.
Yeah, I mean, it was a do or die situation. I told him I'd quit the podcast if he didn't buy a Nintendo Switch. So
yeah, well, he actually told me that Joe is just the beginning, and I got scared. So I guess we know who took out Joe now.
Hey, he
actually, it was like the perfect situation. I had a pretty hefty gift card to Best Buy that covered like 90% of it. And then GameStop was doing a bonus trade-in on the Wii U and all. It's not just the Wii U, but systems and games and accessories.
So you got like $7?
No, actually, like I was kind of shocked. I'm not going to give like an exact amount, but I got roughly like $70 for a Wii U, which for GameStop
that's pretty good.
A lot.
I don't know what they're selling for retail these days. I'm actually going to look that number up real quick if you don't mind.
Go ahead. And I was just, I mean, it was just the system and 2 controllers. So like it wasn't anything crazy. It was a little more than just the system, but the case was like I never used the Wii U, so like I didn't care. Like if I only got like $20 for it, I was like, it's still $20 towards a Switch. So it was enough between that and the Best Buy card to actually get the Switch completely free out of pocket.
There you go.
Like didn't have anything. Now the only downside was it consumed all of it, so all I got that day was the Switch. Like
no
that was
games
it.
for it.
Right, no games, just got the console.
Gotcha.
Took it home, set it up, just got everything kind of prepped and ready. And then the following weekend, which was like a day or two later, went ahead and got Smash Brothers for it. So
very nice.
I have that now, and I'm having to play the crap out of it so I can unlock everything because it takes forever.
There's really, really fast ways you can actually unlock characters. You can unlock all the characters in a short amount of time if you just do this little thing you can find online. So
are we talking like a glitch or a?
No, not a glitch. Just more like an exploit where like you do a match, you unlock a character, and then you like back out of the game, close it, open it back up, do another match or something like that. I forget what it is, and they might have patched that out by now. I don't know, but they it was a nice fast way to unlock a bunch of characters. I'm
guessing they're saying by doing that, it's every time you do it, a new character appears basically, and then you gotcha.
But then you have to beat the characters, and that game's not easy.
No, I'm not good at Smash. I'm not terrible at Smash. I'm just somewhere in the middle. Like,
yeah, I'm right about there with you.
If we were to play, not with professionals, mind you, but if we just played with a group of randos, and there were 8 of us, I'd probably come in 4th on average.
Well, you don't want to play with my stream because everyone on my stream is really good.
Well,
they kick the tar out of me on a regular basis.
I guess I'll try to give it a try at some point.
Maybe you and I should 1v1 one of these days. Like next time we do a live podcast, we'll wrap it up with a little Smash Bros match.
That's something that just does not sound appealing. Let me just embarrass myself further than I already do on a day-to-day basis, especially with these podcasts. Let me just go show everybody how bad at Smash I can be.
Well, welcome to the wonderful world of Nintendo Switch ownership, my friend.
It's cold. It's more wet than I thought.
Yeah, that's my lights just flickered.
What?
Yeah, breaking the fourth wall a little bit here. I'm in the middle of a massive windstorm, and so if this podcast ends prematurely, I lost power.
Oh gosh.
Oh, they're flickering. All right, I think we're good for now. Jesus.
That's such an odd thought. Because here, well, I say that like we do have crazy strong winds when bad weather comes in, but it's going to be like really bad weather. Like it's not just going to be wind. on a clear day, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's literally what we have right now. Sun shining, wind is blowing up to gusts of 50 miles an hour. So
yeah, we won't have something like that. Like if it's wind blowing that strong, you might be at like 11 o'clock in the morning, but it'll be pitch black outside and pouring down. You know, it's going to look like death is about to occur.
Right, and that happens here as well. But and this is rare. Just to have just wind is certainly rare. It's usually accompanied by a blizzard or a hurricane or something. But it happens. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah, the high winds, they do happen. Anyway, so that being said, why don't we dive into our main topic for today, which is a game that I'm looking forward to. I think Matt's looking forward to too. And that is the next installment from the From Software development company, which are the geniuses behind such classic hits as Dark Souls and Bloodborne. And that is a game called Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sekiro?
I'm hearing different things from, I listened to a lot of sources today preparing for this. A good many of them that went the route of saying it almost in a Eastern accent kind of way.
Sekiro.
Said it more of Sekiro, is instead of like enunciating the E on the Sekiro of Sekiro.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the right way or what it is, but as long as we know what you're talking about, I don't care how you say it. I really don't.
It's basically Neo, but better.
Basically Neo, but actually good.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
So to anyone who didn't play Neo and doesn't know what that is, so some game developer basically designed a samurai game with a lot of fantasy elements into it and upped the difficulty a good bit to make it in effect feel Souls-esque to an extent.
Yeah.
Now that it's hard to describe to people who haven't played it. And I'm lucky because Jay has now played enough of Dark Souls that he's going to know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Just because you make a game hard doesn't mean you achieve the Dark Souls formula.
Yeah.
Right. There's way more to it than that. And arguably, no one's ever going to say those games are not hard because they are. They're not this crazy impossible thing that some people try to make them out to be. Like there's a method to the madness. It may not be the easiest.
Once you learn the game, it becomes very graspable.
Right. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but like there's logic to it. There's understanding and like appreciation as opposed to playing like a Super Meat Boy kind of thing where you're just like F.
I mean, the game is going to screw you over from time to time. Like right now in Dark Souls 1, I'm at this part of the game where I walk into a building and in my blind spot on my left is a massive enemy that just smacked you in the face and killed you in one shot. And I'm just like, all right, tight. Which like in any other game, that would be bad game design. But in Dark Souls, that's just, that's
in fairness, the older Dark Souls were way more trolly than
I'm learning because
like
I've played 1 and 3 at this point, so.
Right, and don't even bother playing 2. That one's I don't like.
You
Dark Souls
gave
2.
it to me. It's on my
I know.
shelf.
I know, for collector's sake.
All right, fine.
I knew one day.
I've seen 2. I have no intentions of really playing 2 anytime soon. But
no, it's not that. It's
one
not that good.
1 and 3 are great, but
yes, I agree. And this, so the design they went for out of the Souls series when they were designing Neo was more Bloodborne-esque, and you have to know the game to really know what they mean by that. Fast and aggressive.
Yes,
is basically what that means. Is it comparable to Bloodborne? No, not really at all. But it's very fast. The weapon system and combat for Neo was by far the best thing they did. So if Sekiro comes even close to that, it's going to be amazing.
From what I've seen, it looks wicked fun.
Because this is also a very samurai fantasy type of feel, except this one's actually made by From Software, which is, like Jay said, the people who made Dark Souls and Bloodborne. So
I have to think that Miyazaki, the guy behind From Software, looked at Neo and said, "I'm going to make that, but good."
We can do this. We can do this better.
Yeah, exactly.
I would not be. I wouldn't even care. I would. I would just kind of laugh. Like, yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, the timing adds up. Like, as far as the development cycle goes.
The biggest question I'm gonna have with this game, which we won't know until still close to a month out. Give or I think it's like 25 days.
Yeah, it comes out March 22nd of 2019 for the PS4, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows. Let's just get that out of the way.
So for right now, roughly 24 and a half. By the time of the podcast comes out, like 22 days.
Yeah, a month away.
Give or take.
Yeah.
The biggest question I'm going to have is how they go about story elements, because that's one of the things that makes the Souls game very unique in its delivery. Some people don't like it, and that's fine. It's whatever. But it's not a very spoon-fed type of thing.
No.
It's very much you got to go get it.
Yes. And I love that about the series, honestly. It's creative.
It's just different, and some people don't like that, and that's fine. But I think the biggest pull to it to me is it's almost like reading a book, because one, you're literally reading, but aside from that, you're piecing all this together in your head in your own imaginative way. So the way that you visualize it may not be the way that I visualize it. We might have literally our own perceptions of how this is happening.
Yeah, very true.
Which makes it very unique for each individual player.
Right. I mean, it's not like, The Legend of Zelda, where you go to a place, you get a cutscene that gives you more of a narrative, and, it's a very black and white, this is what's happening in the game. It's very more like, hey, I found this piece of lore that I can read if I want to, and to try to figure out the backstory of what's going on here. I mean, usually at the beginning of these games is a big narrative dump just to kind of set the stage. But, from there, it's kind of on you to figure out what's going on if you want to. And a lot of people don't give a rip, and they just want to play the game. So there's that too.
Right. But as it stands right now, we don't know where this game's going to land in that territory.
Nope.
Don't know if they're going to follow the Souls formula, or if they're going to go a little more cutscene, or because the cutscene they show for the trailer and the demo itself is it gives a good bit of detail. But then again, like I said, typically those opening ones, they do give you a good bit to go off of, and then like, okay, well, that's all you got. Go from here.
Yep.
And then I'll be interested to see if it's going to be similar, if they're going to branch out and try something different there. Which I'd be fine either way. Like I'm not one of the purists that thinks just because it's From Software, like you have to carbon copy exactly what you did with Dark Souls.
Right. I mean, honestly, a lot of the changes that they're making in this game, I think are awesome changes. Let's talk about some of them. So, for example, the title, Shadows Die Twice. What's this whole dying twice thing have to do with the gameplay, Matt?
Well, there's a lot more to give, and that's actually something I'm very curious for them to reveal story-wise, of the purpose and meaning behind how this is occurring. But you're going to get two chances, basically.
Yeah.
So when you die, you get a chance to come back and attempt that moment right then, which it can be very dangerous too, because like let's say you die in a boss fight, because when you do come back, you're not able to just swing guns a-blazing immediately. Like you got to recuperate for just a little bit.
Yeah, you got to heal up. You got to get ready.
Right. Well, if I remember right, like you have pretty low health whenever you come back, don't you?
I don't know. I don't want to make a comment on that because I don't know.
I can't remember. Like for some reason in my head, I thought that maybe like you didn't have full health when you came back or something like that. But that could be wrong. Either way, you get to come back. So if you do die in a boss fight, you have that one more chance. And then if you die again, then it's just back to wherever the previous checkpoint leaves you from there.
Yeah, they still have, like in Dark Souls, they had the bonfires. They're called shrines in this game, which actually, isn't that what they called them in Neo too?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah.
But these are like glowing blue
Monks.
talisman shine
Yeah.
looking things. It was actually really cool. So this is what happens when you play too many Souls games for way too much time.
Yep.
I can't say that it is 100% reused material, but it is without a doubt at least the same voice actor doing the same sound as a character from Dark Souls 3.
Oh, is that so?
When you fight the cursed monk in the demo, which is the boss that they allow you to play for this one, it is one of the exact sounds. And Jay has actually made it to this point in Dark Souls 3, so he might remember. It's fairly early in the game. It's those really big. I don't know. I think they're ladies that have like the hat on, and they kind of
they're like
have the
spellcasters.
staff, and they do that really weird sound. They're
Yeah. I remember those.
It uses the exact sounds that they use, like almost to a T.
That's funny.
Now it has some variety with that, but I remember hearing that. I was like, oh, okay, and it worked because I mean the oddly enough, its movements in a way reminded you of those characters, except much faster because this game is more on a Bloodborne speed, arguably faster.
Right. Dark Souls combat was very much, shield and, counter, parry, stuff like that. Whereas to Bloodborne, instead of a shield, you had like a blunderbuss or some sort of like rifle or gun or something. This one, your offhand is actually very interesting. It can change between a few different things. So it can, it has like a fire attack. You can like throw a fireball. It can, so your offhand's mechanical. I should probably throw that out.
Right.
So it's like a flamethrower. It can shoot a little fireball. It can turn into a giant axe, so you can like break shields. And there's some third thing. I don't remember what it is. Do you?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I remember them going through the catalog of all the stuff that your left hand could do, and I'm blanking on it at the moment.
But it's pretty interesting. So you can really customize your combat in that sort of way.
But I do know that the opposite is going to be true of your right-handed weapon. You're pretty much going to use your samurai sword the entire time.
Yes.
It's not going to be like Bloodborne and Dark Souls where there's endless amounts of main weapons to go through. This one's kind of focusing, like Jay said, on in terms of variety and stuff, it's going to be on the left hand.
Yeah, they took out a lot of the RPG elements from this game. Like in Dark Souls, there were, you would collect souls as you killed things, and in Bloodborne you had the blood echoes. Those are missing in this game. There's no sort of currency. There's nothing to level up with or buy new equipment with or anything like that. This is like 100% combat centric. And that's very interesting to me. And I also love that they, personally for me, I love that they took out the stamina meter. So you can kind of like roll and jump and do all of these things just as much as you want to. And that's going to affect combat. And there's also...
there's a good reason they did that. It's funny that you actually made that comparison. So they did take away that, but rolling is going to be less helpful than you think.
I'm sure.
Because they designed it like that. They're kind of FromSoft being FromSoft. They're like, hey, what if we punish people for doing things that they're familiar with in Dark Souls? So these turds were like, hey, what if we made dodge rolling actually not beneficial?
Yeah.
So the way that you're like the equivalent to dodge rolling in this game, which if you've never played a Souls game like that, that's how you evade, or it's really with any game, but that's your bread and butter of getting away and not getting hit.
You have a lot of iframes, as we call it, when you dodge roll.
Well, especially if you do it in a specific time.
Yes,
it's usually about timing.
Yeah, you can't just roll into an enemy's sword and not get hit by it, but it's a really good way to disengage.
Right, especially in Bloodborne. Like once you get to play in that one, that's when you'll really get down on some rolling.
I'm sure.
But on this one, there is some rolling, but it's in a different way. But their whole point is timing. but in a combat sense. Like Jay said, everything's focusing around combat. So they want you to parry, they want you to be aggressive, and they have like I think they said like 3 different forms of types of parries. You know, you have like a block parry. You have if you attack at the same time that they attack, and then if you roll into their attack on time. So like not rolling away, but like rolling into them.
Yeah, rewarding that aggression.
Right. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a complete different play style, which is going to be very intriguing for a lot of Souls player, because jumping from Dark Souls to Bloodborne and or vice versa, it takes some getting used to, but it's not so drastically different that it takes more than 10 minutes to kind of get your sea legs, so to speak. This might take a little longer.
I'd imagine.
Only because it's just there's so many differences that there seem to be. Now, if you had played Neo, and we don't know I haven't played the demo myself yet, so I don't know the exact controls, but if they transfer over similar to kind of how Neo functioned, which was already similar to Bloodborne in a few ways, then that might help a little, because that was close to the same speed as what we're seeing here. And, you know, speed is very important, because gaming, as anybody knows who's a gamer or even not, it's all about hand-eye coordination and your ability to react and stuff like that. And if you're not used to doing things that are fast, then it's going to be a little more difficult to you until you kind of adapt and get a little more used to it. So if you've just been playing Dark Souls 1, never played any of the other ones, and then jump straight to this, it might it might take a minute.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and even if you are, you know, familiar with this kind of combat, I mean, you know, From Software is not going to make this a walk in the park.
No. My gosh, the first boss of the demos, it was like, man, they're just being douchebags. Which means
I didn't play the demo either, but I did watch a little bit of the footage from it. I don't like to spoil myself on games too much, especially ones that I do intend on playing. But and
that's the thing with that's the thing with demos these days, is so many developers have gotten good about either it's not even something from the beginning of the game, it could just be random.
Yeah, this didn't look like it was the very beginning of the game.
It also could not be scaled to how it will happen in the game, so like it may even be more difficult.
Yeah,
or less, or whatever have you. Or we've even had games in the past that just made something for the demo that wasn't even in the game.
That's an excellent point, actually.
So I would like to see this, because the scenery for where they were was
absolutely gorgeous,
beautiful, which I'm very excited about. That's probably gonna be the most pleasant part about this, because the biggest compliment that all the sources of the material that I watched involving this game were giving towards From Software was with Dark Souls and Bloodborne, is the environment that they create is just astounding.
Yeah,
like it's incredible how immersive it is, how detailed it is, how crazy in the weeds with the designs of everything that they go through. Like, do you even remember in Dark Souls 3, the very first place you come to when you wake up out of your grave, and you go through this hill as you go up and like making a corner, and if you turn to your right, there's just this huge building on a mountainside that is just there for looks. Like but it's just so freaking detailed.
Yep,
it is just incredible to look at. But the counterbalance with that, Dark Souls, literally in the name, dark. There's very few sceneries that have any light. Or it's usually pretty gloomy looking, or foggy in nature, or dimly lit, or whatever. And Bloodborne's the exact same way. Bloodborne arguably even worse.
Yeah, because that game takes place mostly at night.
The beginning of the game is the beginning of the game is as bright as it gets, and it's already at sunset. Well, when you go outside, it's already at sunset. So it's already getting dark.
Yeah,
and it's only going to get darker. So it's going to
be difficult
nice
to see sometimes. But this game, I mean, I'm looking at a bunch of screenshots right now, and there's no darkness in any of them.
Right, and
that's not true. So there's a few, but
there's going to be a few, but the point is, like, you're taking that same company with that incredible immersiveness, and now they're going to get to show off, hey, let's show you how beautiful we can actually make things be.
Yeah.
You know, with color and vibrance and actually making things look lively, as opposed to and even in the demo, they did a fantastic. FromSoft just knows how to do things in such a design manner to where, like, a user doesn't necessarily think about this, but like in the demo, before you get to the area that's just covered in beautiful red tree scenery, you go through a very, very short cave, but you're in there long enough to where you escape all color and you're just in this gray cave for like 2 seconds. And that's just enough to give your mind time to process, I guess, dim colors, so that by the time you walk back out and that sharp red hits, it hits like a freight train. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's not only did they give you this beautiful thing, they separated you from it just long enough so that when it hit even harder than it would if it was, you know, just consistently here.
Right.
Little things like that are just incredible.
The lows help you appreciate the highs, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, that they, and I presume this game is going to be no different, but I don't know if you've ever thought about it as you've made your way through Dark Souls 3. The game has such a beautiful way of telling you where to go, even if you don't realize it. Such as, you know, and it can seem not that way until you get used to it, because there's so much to figure out. But there's so many places that you might drop off a ledge and there's no way to get back. And that seems like an oh crap moment, but ultimately that's the game saying you're going the right way.
Yeah.
Keep going that direction. You know, we're not going to let you mindlessly backtrack for no apparent reason. You know, we let you drop off there. Okay, keep going.
Yep, there is something ahead.
Little things like that, and I think Jay even talked about it on another one of how sometimes the bosses have these little telling ways of figuring out their weaknesses and what you can do to counter them and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to all of that, but in this game.
Yeah.
Seeing how it pans out.
One of the things that's just wicked cool about this game that I'm really looking forward to too is the movement in this game.
Oh gosh,
you
mean like just traversing?
Movement. What's up?
You mean like just traversing and stuff?
Yeah. I'm big into movement in video games.
It's borderline Spider-Man-esque.
Yeah, kind of. In Dark Souls, you're a knight or something like that. You know, you're a warrior, but not, you know, speed isn't really your game too much unless you're a thief, but still.
You're on the ground.
Yeah, same thing with Bloodborne. You're just kind of like a dude. But you're a samurai in this game, and so, you know, samurai, they were agile. I mean, you have a grapple hook in this game, which is a huge addition. It's not free use. It can only be used in certain places, so you can't, like, break the game with it, which, you know, is wise, but also a little upsetting.
It's FromSoft. You know they were going to give you an out just for every fight possible.
Right. But I think that's a really cool thing that they're like, oh, you know, here's a grapple hook. So it opens, like, some verticality to the world, too. It's not just, like, walking along a path and, you know, whatever. You can take some high ground. You know, stealth is a big part of this game. You can get some instant stealth kills on, like, the weaker enemies if you sneak up on them. And it's great. So all of those things, like the grapple hook, the stealth combat, like, all that aids to different play styles that you can use and explore and, you know, manipulate and use how you want to. You know, I don't think there's one specific way to play this game. You know, they took away a lot of the customization. You can't do a dexterity run or a strength run of the game anymore, but you can do, you know, you can play it in a lot of different styles.
Right. That's one thing. I hope they still allow a little bit of detail in the left hand type of thing, because weapon customization is such a huge deal in some of the From Software games because of how elaborate it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Bloodborne, if you ever get to that this year, it's incredible how many different things. Because not only do you have weapons that scale to your attributes that you are feeding on your skill tree, that every weapon, reacts differently depending on what attributes you're using. You also have gems and stuff that you can attach on top of that do different bonuses or elemental effects or stuff like that. And then you have these runes that you can stack on top of that. So like you have just a crazy depth chart that you can customize this weapon into. Just a masterpiece that is incredible. When I did a skill build, like people just hated playing PvP because if you did it right before they kind of patched it a little bit, you could just murder people with this weapon called the Blades of Mercy. I don't know if you ever saw them or not, but
I don't think so.
It's like two little what were those weapons called that Egyptians have that are like little mini size but have a curvature to them? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm trying to remember what those are called. And I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, at any rate, it's kind of like that, a little less sharp of a curve, just kind of like a slight curve on it.
Yeah, they're not huge.
But they're about that size, but they're incredibly fast.
Yeah.
So you can get a ton of hits in. And in a game that's already as fast as Bloodborne, you get a weapon that's known for being fast. You're getting some hits in.
Nice.
And then you would equip that with a thing called Beast Roar, which was an element that would use your bullets instead of your stamina. So you could literally go up to somebody, just hit 90 to nothing. And Blades of Mercy was so fast that it was actually difficult to parry because you have a small time window, and the reality of doing PvP is you have like a slight delay whether you want to or not. So getting that exact timing would be really difficult. And then on top of that, I'm just sitting here swinging, deplete my stamina. That's usually a bad thing. But since the Beast Roar doesn't use stamina, as soon as my bar would go down, I would hit it. And what that does, it literally knocks the player on their back.
Ooh.
It knocks them down. And
that's
by
not
the
a place
time,
you want to be.
No, and by the time he gets back up, my stamina's back.
Ah.
Yeah, so it was really cheap. But yeah, you could abuse the heck out of that.
I'm sure.
So that's why I hope that, like, stuff, just little stuff like that, like there's just so many stuff that you could play with and find out these crazy tactics to use that, especially because I didn't see them use a whole lot of items yet in the demo. I don't know if they're with it being a combat oriented thing. I would have to imagine they're gonna still include something to that.
I'm sure. I'm sure they're holding a lot of their cards close to the vest right now.
Right, because like even in Bloodborne, there's gosh, what was it called now? It's basically like a vial of blood that you could throw, and any enemy that is a beast in nature would be naturally drawn to it.
Yeah, it was like an alluring skull from Bloodborne.
You mean Dark Souls?
Dark Souls, yep, sorry.
Right, so yeah, it's basically a distraction item, more or less. So like,
it was
I'm
like,
curious
hey,
to see
go
something.
get it, and they like go fetch.
Right, so I'm curious if they have something like that, or the infamous rock or pebble that you can throw to distract or try to get one enemy at a time, as opposed to not that one.
I like those items, man. They were little statues you can get in Dark Souls that when you just throw them, they just make sounds. I mean, it was meant for like online, communication. But
you ended up using them a lot less later in Bloodborne, but like even now, I still use them every now and then because you've played these games. It's not easy to take enemies on one at a time, let alone
in
two or three.
Yeah,
like you just, even with basic enemies, it's not a good idea.
Oh yeah, no, you can. I just ran into that the other day in Dark Souls 1. There's right before you get to the gargoyle bosses where you're ringing the bell, you got to run through this room where there's like, I don't know, 15 of just the most basic enemy. They just have like these little tiny daggers, and that's all. That, like, no armor, no shields, nothing. And you can get overwhelmed and killed by those things very easily.
Very quickly, too.
Yeah.
And
so you have to be smart about your combat. I stood in a doorway and let them kind of funnel in and just killed them like one or two at a time. That's how you have to play that situation, and I'm sure we'll see situations just like that.
I was going to say, I can almost promise you this game is no different.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna see situations just like that, and probably new things as well in Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Looking forward to this one.
Like everybody who's been I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be in Dark Souls. I can't think of it at the moment, but everybody has that moment in Bloodborne to where they've died to a crow one time. It's kind of like it's almost like dying to a rad roach in Fallout, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because
they're just these like derpy, like, cause I know the crows. I know what you're talking about. They're just like these derpy giant things that go down really easily, but sometimes you just get caught.
Well, I mean, they hit a lot harder than a rad roach. I'll say that.
But, there's that. Yeah.
I mean, they're still not like anything that should be considered a quote unquote threat. But like, the point is, these games are created in a way that they never allow you to be careless.
No.
In any, like, the moment you do that, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
You're just
you're
going to die.
Yeah. When you die in these games, I'd say at least 99% of the time you're like, oh, I screwed up. That's my fault. Every now and then I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of a bullcrap death. But for the most part, I'm like, I screwed up.
And most of those 10% was probably in Dark Souls 1, where there's just some really crappy, trolly things that they do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm playing the remastered version of Dark Souls 1 for the Nintendo Switch. And, so it is a little different. They did change some stuff in it. It's still
very much so.
It's still garbage and it's still terrible, but it is what it is.
You'll notice more if you ever get around over to Bloodborne. But Dark Souls 3 is a complete meet in the middle of Dark Souls and Bloodborne.
Yeah, and honestly, playing through. I mean, I played Dark Souls 1 more often because, again, it's on my Switch, so I can play it anytime, anywhere. And Nintendo, freaking sponsor us, please. But, like, because I don't want to sit down at my desk and have to play Dark Souls 3. I have to be in a place to do it, So I've been playing 1 a lot more, but yeah, it's a different beast, It's slower. You have to take it slower.
Mm-hmm. And Dark Souls 1 was also way more defensive. Way more.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you couldn't be anywhere near as aggressive in the first one as opposed to the third one.
I am finding in Dark Souls 1, actually, that there are some fights where I hold up my shield and, kind of do circles around the enemy so you can make your way around to their back and hit them in the back and all that stuff. But there are a lot of fights and a lot of bosses I fought too where I'm actually just double-handing my weapon to do extra damage, and I'm just moving around and dodging at the right time and learning how to dodge. And so that's not the way I see a lot of people play that game. A lot of people do the shield, the slow, the defense, but I find my play style is more aggressive, and I'm happier having a double-handed weapon where I'm doing more damage and, rolling to avoid attacks instead of blocking them with my shield. The payoff on that is if I get hit, I get hit. Like, it's hard.
That's the downside of that method is that some bosses more than others hit really, really freaking hard, which because of that playstyle, I'm excited for you to eventually get to Bloodborne, because they take a game that has no shield.
Yes.
And then they're like, hey, what if we made the enemies hit even harder? Like, why? Why would you do this? Because we don't have a shield now. So like, now you really have to dodge, because there's several enemies in that game that can almost kill you even if you're full health, like just with one shot.
Yep.
And there's several that can, depending on how many attributes you put into health when you go to fight that specific enemy. But thinking back on Dark Souls, there's not too many that do that.
Dragons.
Well,
I made a mistake of ending up in the Valley of Drakes way before I should have. I walk over and there's this what looks like a decomposing dragon guarding a couple of items, and I'm like, okay, of course this thing's alive. So I run in and I grab the items. Ended up with the Astora Greatsword, which is a good weapon.
It's a good balance weapon.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the materials to upgrade it, so I'm sticking with my +5 broadsword. But I run and I grab the items. The dragon wakes up. I'm still two-handing my weapon at this point, so I swing my two-handed +5 broadsword at it, and it does some damage. And I'm like, I could probably kill this thing. Dragon paw comes out of nowhere and lands on me, and I'm dead. So, dragons.
Which, in fairness, you went there a little early, so that didn't help matters.
I have the master key, which allows me to sequence break, and I didn't realize that that's exactly what it was for, so I regret that.
I mean, I did the dancer challenge for you, so I've made mistakes in my life too.
Yeah.
And that was not pleasant.
Oh.
I remember why I didn't like doing that the first time. It's not a very enjoyable experience when you pretty much get one shot in everything that you do.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, that'd be one of those few instances which we need to get you at least through Dark Souls 3 so that by the time this one comes out, you don't have 3 From Software games you're potentially split between.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, well, and we can talk about that. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is coming out March 22nd. Matt, are you picking this game up?
I want really bad to say yes. So what I have here's the thing you need to know about me, which Jay probably already knows, but since I'm trying to think of how long ago that was. The last time I bought a game on launch was
Fallout 4?
No, I didn't even get that on launch day.
Oh, okay.
It's probably back when I worked at GameStop.
Oh, okay.
Because I was already there. I had to work the midnight release. I got a discount.
Why not?
There's more factors going that way.
Yep.
I'm not the type of guy that likes to get things the first week. I don't like being the guinea pig.
Right.
There's always bugs. There's always something that needs to be worked out. It doesn't kill me to wait. I'm not one of those guys that die if I stay off of social media so that I avoid spoilers. Like I know some people's like, I can't stay off of it, man. I'm like, nah. I can.
You're better off staying off of it some days, especially as the election cycle starts drawing near.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And even if it does, I just scroll past it. Like it just don't read it.
Yeah,
it's not. You're only doing it.
It's not always
yourself.
that easy to just not read it or whatever. But I understand what you're saying.
Right. It's easier said than done. But like the thought behind it is like if you really don't want to do it, then you just got to push through. Sticking with don't do it. Yeah. Basically.
So you're going to get this game, but not at launch. Is that what you're telling me?
I am leaning very heartily towards getting it for sure. Mm-hmm. I hope that it stays that way, but it will probably be anywhere from a week to a month after it comes out.
I feel that.
I want to let it come out. I'm not going to watch any crazy detail on it, but just make sure it doesn't Fallout 76 us or something. And I have no sort of notation that this is going to happen like that. Like I would probably no shot of that happening.
Yeah.
But as we get older and older, it's painful to say as we adult properly. It's like I don't want to throw $60 on a game that is just going to suck.
Yeah, I feel that.
I like just testing the waters a little bit and not going in blind. Because this sounds weird. This is probably going to blow your mind, but I did not get Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 on launch day.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Mm-hmm. Neither of them. Dark Souls 3 was a lot closer. I think I got it like the second or third day it came out or something like that. I did get the DLC of those games when they came out.
Yeah, but that's different. That's already a proven product,
Right. That's a whole different, and that's coincidentally, I think that's the only DLCs I've ever. That's not true. I bought the Borderlands DLC. But again, worked at GameStop. And the Dark Souls and Bloodborne DLC. Other than that, never bought DLC. That's the only time it's ever happened.
Fair.
So interested to see in a lot of ways how this one goes. Which to bounce that question back to you, are you going to be in the same boat I'm in, or are you thinking, which I know you're going to be out of town whenever it actually comes out?
I'm not going to pick this game up at launch for a couple of different reasons. One, I'm going to be away that weekend, and two, Final Fantasy VII for the Nintendo Switch comes out that weekend, so I'm going to be busy.
So how, if you are to get this game, when do you see yourself getting it on a timeline?
Probably like a month at the earliest after its release, assuming it's still good.
Okay. Which, high hopes that it is good. And so I'll go ahead and say a potentially wrong thing, as we like to do.
As we do.
Yeah, as we do. But just to stir the pot and get the conversation going, if this game at all holds up to its predecessors in the way that Dark Souls has, and or Bloodborne or Demon Soul, any of the From Software series, then there's a very good chance that this game is going to be in contention for Game of the Year. Very good chance.
Yeah, it's again, that's an argument we'll be paying close attention to as the year progresses, but this is I don't think any of those titles have actually won straight up Game of the Year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's
Bloodborne won something.
Yes, it won an award, but it did not win Game of the Year.
Right. Didn't win. And I'm not saying it would win, but just
a nomination?
Right. For right, that's subjective for what we have right now and what we know of.
It's hard to tell. It's stinking February. We have many months to go in the year.
Right. And this one, unlike Bloodborne, is going to be on all the consoles, including PC.
Yes. Honestly, I wish I had a good enough computer to run it on PC. I could run this game on PC, but just not as well as I'd like it to. So I'll probably end up with it for PlayStation, unless I build my new PC.
Is it that stout?
What's up?
Is the game that stout?
Just looking at it, it seems like it would be. I would want to play this game on max graphics, and while my PC is okay, it's not that good. So, anyway, I think we need to begin wrapping this one up here. Our question of the day for this week, kind of throwing back to the whole grapple hook thing and how that's increasing movement. What's your favorite movement item or mechanic in gaming? It can be from a specific game or just an item in general. Or
Go
just
ahead
like
and
a mechanic in general, I guess.
Go ahead and give your answer so I can have time to think.
I'm going to throw mine to something that I haven't really seen done since, and that's from Assassin's Creed 2 Brotherhood, I believe it was. They had the hook blade. And that was just so, I don't even know if it's my favorite, but it's so unique that it always stands out in my mind.
I think the one I have to go with, I'm trying to think if it holds up now. I think it would, just because of how iconic it was, especially at the time. Probably the Batman Arkham City.
Mm-hmm.
Any of that type of movement, to be able to traverse so much in so little of a time without being a character capable of just crazy, like you can't fly, you can't web sling, or yet you are making do, just grappling hook through the city and using your cape to just hover or glide through.
Yeah.
Or dive bomb and then use the wind to actually come back up and glide even further. There's so many different ways to go about it that I'd probably give that as the answer.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
I think
Yep.
if you had to go modern, I guess the cop out would be Spider-Man.
Yeah, trust me, that was on my list too. Was web slinging. Anyway,
it was good.
That's gonna do it for this week's podcast. As we are in a dry season of gaming with not a whole ton of new games coming out at the present moment, please let us know what you want us to throw on the agenda to chat about. Whether it's a newer game, an older game, a topic about gaming, someone in gaming. Something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a video game, but just something gaming related. We are always more than happy to take your prompts.
And to do that, we now have a Twitter that you can go and post stuff at.
Mistakes were made.
Specifically is at 2BitGP. GP is in Gaming Podcast. Would have liked for it to just be at 2-Bit Gaming Podcast, but that was too long for Twitter's allotment for what they allow, and then 2-Bit Gaming was already taken. So we made with what we got.
Yep.
So if you would like for any sort of suggestion or topic or whatever have you that you would like us to talk about, send us a tweet over at 2-Bit Gaming Podcast or hashtag 2-Bit Gaming, and we will have a backlog of anything and everything that you'd like us to talk about in a nice organized fashion to where we can communicate with you together as opposed to our independent Twitter channels trying to piece things like a bunch of chaos.
And if you're a watcher of this on YouTube, you can go ahead and leave a comment there as well. Is always a good place to reach us. And I think that's about all we got this week, Matt.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Sekiro Shadow Does Die Twice. If you're not already looking into it. If you're not already looking into it, go do it. It's really weird. I don't know what happened, but Twitter locked the account temporarily.